Okay, we're recording. Go ahead, Joe. Take control of this screen, and we'll go through the presentation and then introduce ourselves.
Sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the presentation here. And then I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Make sure I've got the right one here. So
Yeah, yeah. There's two. Don't do number two. Do number one.
that's right. And then we'll check this here too to make sure we can see this.
That looks
So
good.
when I pull this up here, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation.
Okay.
And let me know, is that visible to you?
That looks good to me. I think everybody looks. It looks real good. I'm ready to go.
Good. I'm going to put a little light on my face because I look a little bit drowned out.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to just say something real quick here. I want to welcome everybody to the presentation, and also just to let you know, one of the things that I've been hearing is that staff, many of the people that I've talked to, hygienists don't want to go back to work. Um, there are some assistants that don't want to go back to work, and it is a big issue. How do we make our offices not only safe for our patients, but how do we make it safe and secure to get back to work for our staff? And so we're going to address that. We're not going to do a lot of work with PPE. We're going to talk about office environment, uh, um, cleanliness, and infection control. So go ahead, Joe.
All right. So I'm got control of slides, and go ahead and post any comments in the chat. We can try to
All right.
go ahead and respond to those throughout the presentation.
I introduce myself. I'm Richard Downs. I met Joe through our dental sleep collaboration. We do a lot of work with sleep and dental sleep apnea. Joe is a medically trained and board certified sleep medicine practitioner, and he works extensively with dentists. He believes in oral treatment. He has an oral appliance himself, but he also manufactures oral appliances, and they're very innovative. What he's doing is amazing to me. We got introduced over the concept of the Bongo EPAP machine, and that's how I met Joe. And then we've morphed into this because of my connections with OraCare and Top and Health. Go ahead, Joe.
So we have some disclosures to share. As I was doing research on these human safe disinfection protocols that really are not available to the common professional until recently, since some technological breakthroughs have occurred, I have really stepped behind it, and I believe in these different manufacturers that we've basically brought together for you to evaluate. And so I have gone ahead and taken the initiative and set up a wholesale arrangement with most of these manufacturers because I believe in what they're doing.
Right. And it's just as a disclosure, we have a financial interest in the things we're talking about today. I'm a co-founder of OraCare, and I'm also on the board of Top and Health. And then Joe has financial arrangements with all these companies as well. So we're going to talk about these topics: pre-rinsing, mid-procedure rinsing, and post-procedure dental rinsing, staff and patient safety and confidence, the low-cost solutions, waterline purity, aerosol reduction, dental surface disinfection and toxin reduction, whole office air mitigation, waiting room and door mitigation, COVID-19 screening of patients and staff, operatory bottle disinfection, reverse osmosis and deionized water, and also ozone microbial mitigation.
Now that sounds like a lot, and it is. So we're going to really go into a deep dive in some of these areas, and it'll probably be an initial introduction for most of you. If that is the case, we have plenty of citations we can forward after the presentation. Just know that I want to give you this whole office air mitigation and disinfection protocol here. So it's a lot squeezed into an hour and a half, but stay with us. We'll keep you guided through the process.
Problems that need to be addressed. Of course, we know these. Dental handpiece, aerosols is number one. These aerosols contain SARS-CoV-2. We have a CDC statement on that. I'm not going to go into that hyperlink right now to show it to you in the sake of time, but we will have those citations, as Joe said at the end. Surface disinfection products don't kill the viruses. As a matter of fact, we'll show you that some of the things that we're using now, like glutaraldehyde and cavicide, are actually not killing the viruses that we want. And they're also toxic to human beings. We're going to talk to you about an actual thing that does kill them and is actually safe to human beings. We're going to talk about waterline disinfection, which is not happening anyway, really as a standard compared to Europe, which has 100 CFU standard compared to the US CFU is 500. We've got whole office air disinfection. How do we do that? And also quality, how to control those toxins that are produced, oral preoperative disinfection rinsing, and COVID-19 monitoring.
This is truly the crux of the matter. Is every healthcare provider, whether it's dental healthcare or other specialties, are concerned about this. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that dentistry, dental hygienists, and dental assistants are exposed to the highest burden of infectious agents that are delivered through aerosols. So this is the area that we need to take the direct, you got to take the bull by the horns and start tackling this. And don't forget, part of what we're trying to address here is we're trying to give a solution-driven option that's affordable and effective and safe before someone else tries to impress their opinions on the process. So if we can get there proactively, we can be practicing offense over defense so everyone can feel safe to get back there and get their staff healthy as well. So just know that what we're doing here is trying to give you solutions, not just give questions. So I added this slide to show the dissemination of aerosol. This they actually colored this in this presentation, and there's a link at the bottom, and it shows you the dramatic amount of exposure to droplets. And remember, in aqueous solution, a lot of these viruses, we're talking about hepatitis viruses, HIV, and of course the COVID viruses and influenza are just, they just thrive in this environment. This has to be managed actively. And just because it's a small particulate and hard to see doesn't mean that we don't need to take it seriously, especially in these current pandemic time frames. So these are our points we're going to address, and you can see here we'll number those out, but we're doing whole office air treatment, surface disinfection, ozone review, reverse osmosis. This is important when you use with ozone. You got to start talking about waterline disinfection actively, and of course you have to purify the water for a disinfectant to work. Our purification solution right now is hypochlorous acid for most of your applications. And of course, as Dr. Downs has done most of the research on this with his crew on pre-rinsing, mid-rinsing, and post-rinsing, as I've learned as a clinician from Dr. Downs, this has been something recommended for many, many years. And I think now that pandemic has occurred, we need to actively start to make sure that this is we toe the line here.
It's actually become a standard of care, and it has been a standard of care, but most people have not been following it.
And probably wouldn't have been as effective with the previous solutions that were recommended. So now that we are recommending it, we can give them something that's actually research-based and effective.
Yes.
Don't forget, many of these products are very quickly selling out as people start to hear about this. I've been on several podcasts, a lot of influencers out there. So don't be discouraged if some of these are not readily available right now, but if you're interested, after we talk about this, go to sleeprd.net, go to whole office disinfection page, put in our referral code, which is office, and we'll talk about that later, and get on the pre-order list. Even if you're not ready to order it now, get on the pre-order, we'll put you in the line, and this is gonna be a big deal. I'm not hyperbolizing here. This has been one of our largest topics, and we lecture on many topics here, so.
This is a study that came from Wuhan, and it's actually a restaurant. There's two levels of the restaurant, lower level and upper level, and you'll see that we have the tables in the restaurant. Notice on the lower right, the black arrows from the HVAC system. The HVAC system actually brought the virus from another table through the HVAC system and then infected the people at these chairs. So we are noticing that HVACs are being implicated in the spread of COVID-19. So how are you going to handle that with a negative air system that's maybe only in an operatory or a small suction that's over the patient's mouth? we're going to treat the whole office air system, and we're going to show you how to do that, and maybe give you a better solution than what you've been offered so far. We've got an article on this that will be in your citations.
And we're just giving you an idea of one of our best researched options right off the bat. Just focus on that monitor right there. That's green means you're in the good zone, and we'll talk more about that later.
And that's very important. I'm just going to talk a little bit about negative air systems. There's an article here that we're citing why negative air systems are not common. And it's an older article, but only 2 to 4% of hospitals actually have them. And on a seminar that I saw today from Henry Schein, one of the doctors is equipping one room with a negative air system. It's going to cost $40,000. And so it's just not a solution that is really going to be very practical for dental offices, especially those who have rental space. The problem is they're expensive. You have to seal the plugs in the room. You have to seal the ceiling tiles. You have to create an environment where the system actually is sealed. And then the building owners, if you're in a rental system, will turn the systems off because they get their air from outside. It's expelled outside. They're too expensive to run. Negative air systems don't look like a practical solution for dental offices.
It's not practical for most hospital systems. There's very, very few rooms available for those procedures. And that might change the zoning conversation too. So definitely check in with your local zoning requirements before you decide to invest in something like that anyway.
Joe, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that?
So what I've been researching and what I felt, and I'm pretty confident most of us were kind of feeling the same thing, is the minute we've heard that the COVID-19 can be from the human coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 could actually be on surfaces for protracted periods of times. I'm going out and grabbing Lysol and every sort of cleaner out there, and I'm noticing it. I'm feeling it. I'm breathing it. I'm getting tight in the chest, and that made me think, well, if I'm going to be this focused on disinfection, I better find and look out there for the most safe alternative, because otherwise I'm just shooting myself in the foot by making my health worse.
Right.
And so we've found that quaternary ammonias, glutaraldehydes, you got alcohol based cleaners that are basically carrying these toxic chemicals, because they are disinfectants, and they're volatilized into the air, and things absorb very, very efficiently through the alveolus. I mean, we're talking in the high 90% versus through skin absorption. So we've got to start looking at how do we disinfect but also stay as safe as possible, because this will be a standard part of our practice now. It'll be regular disinfection, probably between every patient,
Right.
and even in some cases more frequently.
Yeah,
go ahead.
These worsen the indoor air pollution that we're breathing, and we're going to show you hopefully more ways to get that air pollution down, not just the toxins and the viruses and the dirt and the fungi, but other ways to get these toxins out of the air. So getting rid of these products might be one of the ways to do that. We believe it is, and it's less expensive. What we're going to show you is less expensive as well. Okay.
And you can't apply those in any water lines. You can't use those actively in any treatments. So we had to find something that was more biomimicry to actually use as both a possible disinfectant during treatment as well as for surface and
I want to say one more thing about this, Joe. We have SDS forms, safety data sheets, for almost all the products we use in dentistry when we're treating a patient. But you don't need an SDS form for these cleaning products, and they actually are causing more problems with our workers than the products that we're using in the mouth. There's no regulation about these cleaning products under your sink. Okay.
Very good point.
And these are some of the problems. Now they're listing here the cause or exacerbate asthma because of their sensitizing and irritating properties. And notice in red all the different compounds, including chlorhexidine, that are implicated in this article about air toxicity and lung toxicity. So there's no national surveillance of healthcare effects related to cleaning and disinfecting products. It's just a sad situation. Chlorhexidine. It has been shown in this study that it's not very effective against viruses. I think, I don't know, some organization, it might have been the ADA, has recommended chlorhexidine rinsing and then peroxide rinsing. We believe that chlorhexidine rinsing is worthless. Chlorhexidine is a product that is a slow acting product. It has substantivity, but for pre-rinsing before a dental procedure, we don't want a substantivity product. We want a product that is working quickly and efficiently to kill viruses before you operate. Okay. Problems with hydrogen peroxide are these. These are a couple of studies that I've cited that I found in the literature, but it's known to suppress osteoblast function. It was found to be inferior to povidone iodine and Ringer's lactate solution in preventing wound infections. This is the British Journal of Anesthesia, June 2017. And on the fibroblast reduction was cited in an article from Medical Daily. If you're going to do surgery and you cut tissue while you're treating, let's say a hygienist is scaling, or you're using a dental handpiece and you're cutting the gum tissue, then you may get delayed home wound healing from hydrogen peroxide. So it's not, in my opinion, it's also deactivated by catalase in your body. And as we said before, it was found to be fairly ineffective in this British study. And then we got with small vacuum systems. You might have seen these. I think Henry Schein has them. Patterson has them, where you have this little snuffleupagus kind of vacuum sweeper close to the mouth. And I asked my Patterson rep about the ADS system. Said, where does that virus go when you suck it out of the mouth? Well, it goes into a filter. Now, he didn't say what kind of filter, but even if it's a HEPA filter, the pores on a HEPA filter are too large to filter out viruses, and we'll show you the statistics on that later. Okay.
I think that's important to clarify there, Dr. Downs, is you have to make these very small viral particles somehow clump together to be large enough to actually be captured by filters. If you don't do that, you're not doing anything with the filter system. So it's a good idea, but it needs to be, number one, made more scalable, more affordable, and then more effective. So currently, we're not seeing the value in the investment at this point.
They're pretty expensive. Yep. This is just a quick note to say that, even your high-speed vacuum, rather than a saliva ejector, the high-speed vacuum close to the teeth is going to remove about 90% of those aerosols. Now, there's still 10% coming out, so that's a big amount. So that's just a quick aside. Go ahead.
And let's focus on fomites too. We got to change the way we actually interact with people, not just through those vacuums, but also interactions in the office.
That's exactly right.
So this is important. We're talking about the future. What is it going to take to safely treat patients so that they have confidence and you have confidence? So we have to give you solutions for safe disinfection and air purification so that your future is not staying locked up in a PAPR, a positive air purifying regulator here. Wanding people with thermometers, infrared thermometers, does not also instill confidence as well. So if we can get active disinfection that's quality, done regularly, and included in our protocols in the offices, we can actually tackle this in a more realistic manner instead of just responding negatively. So this is very intriguing. There was a study done several years ago, and it was published in the Journal of Dental Sciences, and you can see all the points of contact throughout a procedure with each patient that can be cross-contaminated. And so their conclusion in the end was, we have to seriously take environmental and personal infection control measures seriously, including isolation, ventilation, and full cover face shield. So this is what we're going to be covering here, is how do we address each one of those recommendations, number one, effectively, safely, and expeditiously. I added this recently, and this just basically kind of reviews the recommendations by the ADA on what to how to deploy some of these suggestions here, and go ahead and use this as your reference point here. But this basically addresses each aspect, and it includes the fact that we need to do pre-procedural rinsing, but with something that's effective. Also using our barrier protection, of course, using high volume evacuator. And then the final suggestion here is particulate air room filters and ultraviolet treatment. Well, we've got something even better that we found called ionization than ultraviolet exposure. Remember, in our field in sleep disorders, we actually have UV boxes to sterilize CPAP supplies, but you have to be in the box for 5 minutes for it to achieve sterilization. You're going to be wanding things through a UV at 5 minutes. It's not going to sterilize things.
So how do we control contamination in the waiting room and common areas? Because we're not just talking about operatories. New study that I listened to from Henry Schein today was about the fact that these aerosols are extending out 13 feet. Most operatory rooms are smaller than that, and it goes out into the hallways. They're not enclosed. All staff will need to distance themselves, wear masks and gloves at all times, even with each other. And note the a normal face mask is generally fine. Now I have an N95, what's called a KN95 face mask from Korea, and it is proven to be as good as an N95, and I can breathe through it better. So I'm just going to tell you that the mask that you introduced me to, Joe, from Korea, is really the best one I've seen. That N95 mask was comfortable to wear. It wasn't difficult to breathe through. And I don't know how they do it, but it's a better mask.
I agree.
And so there's a number of them. There's one from Europe that has a 94% filtration rate. The 95s are also great. But the one that I like now is the KN95. And we don't have the link to that here, Joe, but we might want to show that sometime in our citations, okay?
Yeah, I'll put that on the citation list. And don't forget, something I've been learning too is on those K95s on the outside, at least, water will break it down. So if you're in a procedure, you're probably going to have to put a general surgical mask over your K95 or N95
right.
to keep it effective, especially if you're reusing it. And we'll talk to you about how the reuse.
Yeah, we can reuse it, and we'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to talk about hand washing, but hypochlorous acid hand spray, how quick that can be when you're done with the procedure. And then face decontamination. We can actually spray this antiseptic in your face, and you will not be harmed. This is a remarkable product. HOCl has been stabilized now. When I first started OraCare, I read about it and wrote about it, but I had no idea that they had stabilized it. And now the company that I own stock in, Toppin Healthcare, has got this product in a stabilized form, and it's pretty remarkable. Joe is going to explain more about it later, but I'm excited about this product.
Well, and I like it too because it's an everyday use product too. It'll start off in our healthcare area, and then we can actually share that with our patients so that they can start utilizing it safely at home.
Yeah.
Don't forget, since it's safe for us, we can apply it so much more regularly without concern of the side effects of other disinfection. Don't forget, at the appropriate parts per million, you can actually close your eyes and spray this on your face and decontaminate it several times an hour if you had to. Also, it turns out that the soles of the shoes are very dirty, and you're probably going to get a habit of actually spraying down the soles of your shoes before you come into the office and after you leave.
Right.
Probably even have some at home. And it's safe on clothing, so if you have the appropriate parts per million, you can actually spray it on clothing if you're really concerned that I've actually been exposed to someone who is infectious. This gives you a little bit of confidence there.
Yeah,
You can use it.
It won't bleach your clothes, and you don't have to wear those footies that they've been recommending sometimes. And also, how do we clean the floor in the operatory? We need to talk about that. So we'll go ahead and do that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and in waiting rooms as well. Don't forget, this is in a lot of use cases there.
Right.
So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So solutions to these issues, we're going to be recommending pre-rinse with oxidizing agents. The CDC has recommended oxidizing agents to mitigate these aerosols, and that's from OraCare Health Rinse. Waterline systems have to be improved. We're going to talk about the ultra-safe filters from Toppin. Whole office air must be cleaned. We're going to talk about Clean Air EXP. and how that works without ozone being generated. Surfaces on the office need to have a solution for air treatment. We're going to talk about dolphin pods and actually non-liquid forms that you can order this in for easy shipping and handling. Operatory bottle disinfection, and we're going to talk about mitigation aerosols, and then also reverse osmosis and deionized water that we're going to need for our ozone systems and also for our dolphin pods and autoclaves. Okay.
And if anything is retained during this lecture, this is the package that we've curated for everyone. We've gotten this to be the 1-2-3 punch to handle both air, surface, and water disinfection. And this is what you have to remember. So pre-rinse, water line, whole office air purification, surface disinfection, operatory for if you have a water bottle system, delivery system, and we also have a system that if you're tied into municipal waters there. So just remember this slide. This is what we've curated here.
And then, of course, we're going to be doing that with activated chlorine dioxide. The chlorine dioxide, you may have seen rinses that claim to be chlorine dioxide. They're merely sodium chloride. If it's a one bottle system, it's not active chlorine dioxide. We're going to talk about hypochlorous acid in the bottled water and surface treatment, ozonated water systems, ion air, whole office treatment to kill viruses and molds in the air, ultrafilter waterline filtration, and high resolution pulse ox ring called for COVID-19 screening. Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so the initial and the gold standard for biomimicry, or safe to humans but fantastic for disinfection, unparalleled, is ozone. So many clinicians are familiar with this for water management if they've gotten any sort of dental or medical applications for ozone. The problem is you cannot breathe it. It is very, very damaging to lung tissue. So we have to limit that for specific use cases and find another biomimic just as equally as effective disinfectant, and that's where the hypochlorous acid or hypochlorous solutions come to. And they're both oxidizing agents. And remember, all recommendations are for effective oxidizing agents for disinfection, okay? So we've actually found this group, and they do a fantastic job. They're led by Dr. Tim Rainey down in Texas, a really forward-thinking, functional sort of dentist, and remember, with the EPA, they say that about 1 to 2 parts per million is going to be fantastic for disinfection for waterline. These guys can generate 12 to 18 parts per million. This is much exceeding that. Now, that will very rapidly decline if you do not handle water quality. So if you have a high number of TDS, or total dissolved solids, your ozone will not reach the level of disinfection that you would like it to. So we recommend obtaining the top-end reverse osmosis deionizing water unit with internal filtration to manage the colony forming units in the tanks that develop in RO units, and then latch this and connect this directly into the ozone, so you can have this as a both disinfectant for active water usage in your treatments. It's also going to help speed healing. So clotting is going to happen more quickly. It's going to enhance the healing process, and so does hypochlorous. And remember, nothing's as lethal to human pathogens as ozone or hypochlorous acid. Just know that this is one of our packages that we suggest for managing this process.
That too. What is unique here is that in the past we had to make ozone by bubbling ozone from an arc machine through water to make the ozone. This patented system right here makes ozone directly from water. We're using diamond electrodes on a membrane between the two. It is an amazing thing, and it also produces hydrogen water in addition to the ozonated water. That hydrogen water has a use. We're not going to go into the use of hydrogen water right now, but this is an amazing product, and we want to make sure that you are able to add this to your water bottle systems on your operatories. You do have to change it midday because it gases out. So ozone gases out of the liquid, so does chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide is a gas. They're oxidizing agents that are made at time of use, but they have gotten to the place where they're really easy to use now. And this is one of the systems that we recommend. Ozone is one of the most powerful disinfectants ever discovered. It used to have to be made by, as I said before, by making it through the air. It can be made directly from water. It's one of the safest products to use on human tissue. It stimulates immune responses that are good. The product is patented by a leader in ozone medicine, Dr. Rainey. It kills viruses, bacteria, fungi, biofilm, and spores, and eliminates toxins. You need to know that. So does chlorine dioxide, by the way. This can be placed in operatory water bottles, and it's also good for suckback issues. Okay. And then I wanted to bring this in because this is really big. Ozone has just been approved in Spain for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. In other words, they're either doing it one of two ways. They're taking blood out of the patient's vein, ozonating it, and putting it back into the body to kill the viruses and also improve lung functions. But it's also directly, you can actually directly inject the gas into the vein and kill this virus. So there is a treatment for COVID-19. An Italian study showed that 39 out of 40 people they treated with this who were late stage COVID-19 patients recovered. It is a remarkable, and we've been pushing for years to get ozone approved for treatment like Ebola, but this is the first time we've seen an official recognition in Spain.
And this is what led me to the discovery of hypochlorous and coming together with Dr. Downs on this human safe disinfection protocols. I'm very familiar with ozone, actively promoting this as something to consider with the viral infection. And it just was a natural fit. So I'm glad we have this available. So this is what we're suggesting if you're going to apply ozone to the water is the reverse osmosis system that's called Water Station with Toppin, directly connected to the ozone. It does it directly without having any medical oxygen needed to be ordered and managed. Remember, this is just specifically for water disinfection and for irrigation. Do not try to use this for other medical applications at this time.
Right.
So now we want to move on to a very commonly sort of unhighlighted area, but extremely important if you want to achieve waterline disinfection. You need to first filtrate it, make sure your water is as reduced in colony forming units as possible first, and then you can apply the disinfection so everything's going to work well downstream. The one that Toppin uses does some pretty incredible stuff. So even before you add disinfection to the water, if you have this filter, it's going to achieve this level of cleaning with both bacteria, viruses, it filters spores. And this is super important because this is not just some paper you run stuff through. They've actually applied some really neat and unique patented processes here. That process is specifically adding the electropositivity to the filter so that it attracts and absorbs particles no matter how small. So just like we're talking about with the HEPA filter in the air, you have to do the same thing with the water. If you do not use energy and make negative attract to neutral and make that one large conglomeration of particulates, then it will not be absorbed into the filtration system. So by doing that, you can take anything from tens of microns down to a colloidal suspension to make it clean. So the filtration's primary, and I'm really happy with Toppin because they've made it, instead of thousands of dollars to integrate this into operatory, it's in the hundreds of dollars. So we've got...
And it's a whole office filtration system. All the water in your office, sinks, bathrooms, everything is filtered. So it treats the whole office system. And we're talking about whole office systems for air, whole office systems for water, whole office systems for surfaces. This is what's unique about the package we're putting together.
Yeah, and to full disclosure, I've bought the home version of this because I don't want a bunch of chlorine in the water, and I know after doing the research here how many substances are actually legally allowed to be in my water system and still pass muster. This is really, really important. Try to burn this into your brain. Just by filtration alone, okay, this system was able to take a polyurethane tubing where you can see the slimy biofilm layer on the inside of the lumen of the tubing. And then which is basically untreated, 700,000 CFUs per square centimeter. Then they added a filtration of the top end variety, and within very short order, you were down to no evidence of a biofilm, and it narrowed it down to 10 CFUs, and less than 100 is superlative. So really, really important. It drives home how important filtration is as the first step in whole office disinfection.
By the way, that filter system is made to last for 2 years, but they ask you to change the filters once per year. Then they add a hypochlorous acid on that change to flush out your lines, but you don't need to continue to use chemicals in your lines to keep this lines clean. And also, it's extremely inexpensive to do this. Go ahead.
That's right. So let's focus on what's on all of our minds. When you walk outside, you're wondering, is the grocery cart contaminated? Is my computer contaminated? What's the surfaces? Well, just know that the research shows that your most contaminated surfaces are cell phones, computers, doorknobs, mouse, and countertops. So we have to take that into account for general use as well as operatory disinfection. So if you can use something that's safe for humans, that's highly effective as disinfection, then you can actually start getting into the frequently recommended disinfection process there. So that's why we're moving on to the hypochlorous as such an exciting alternative that was not familiar to us until recently. So hypochlorous acid sounds very complicated, but just know that it is a biological form because it stays within a very tight window of pH that the body recognizes. And with that sort of buffering system, we can really manage a very highly powerful disinfection without hurting us. It actually integrates to our own innate immune system and accelerates healing. So we can both get superlative and exceedingly effective disinfection, but at the same time it improves treatment outcomes. So this is a representation of a Staph aureus bacteria in the green and a white blood cell coming up to it on the left. And as you see it on the right, the white blood cell phagocytizes it and immediately deactivates it with hypochlorous. So the body uses this, the white blood cell uses this to attack all pathogens. We're talking about viruses, bacteria, mold, parasites. It's also been shown recently by Briotech, a manufacturer of consumer grade products and solutions for skin and whatnot, to break down prions. It's the only disinfection protocol that's been shown to be effective against prions and prion diseases.
That's right.
Hypochlorous is so unique, the fact that it has to be right within that window to be effective, and that's what's been so exciting about the Toppin folks, is they were able to make a buffering system and surfactant system that allows for that equilibrium in aqueous solution. If you can have that equilibrium maintained, you can have a shelf life to this, and once you do put a tablet in water, it's effective for 2 weeks. As a tablet form, it's effective for 24 months. Just know that, again, hypochlorous is a chlorine type disinfection product, but it's made by partially disassociating into the 3 oxidizing sort of conditional states there. And because it's within that pH, we can tolerate it, but bacteria and pathogens cannot. So just know that that's why we're really, really excited about this.
By the way, Dolphin Pods change pure water when you want to use your reverse osmosis deionized water to make this. They give you a squirting bottle to put it in. We're also making a fogger, but these tablets are what they come in. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and this is how you would receive it when it's ordered. It comes in a box of 40 tablets. One tablet is essentially equivalent to a whole tub of Volo wipes. But again, you're not wasting and throwing away a bunch of needless wipes, and you're also much more effectively performing disinfection, but doing it safely without being exposed to the quaternary ammonias.
And what's the cost difference, Joe?
So at retail, the pod runs about $8, and Volo, as you know, through your dental suppliers, are usually about $11 to $12. So definitely more affordable as well.
I figured in my office, by using these Dolphin Pods as opposed to Cabo wipes, in my large office, we're going to save about $1,000 a month. Just so you know.
Well, and that's just in disinfection. What about employee absentee? What about your own health?
Yeah.
We've got to maintain that at the same time as doing disinfection, because we're going to be exposed to a lot more disinfection now than ever before. It's going to be part of our next, part of our lives now. And just remember, this is a biomimic. So your white blood cells use this. So it's part of the initial process. When we have to fight against something, we have to actually stimulate the response and healing as well. And that's why we want to really encourage people to be open to learning about this, is you have superior disinfection, and then you improved outcomes because you're improving the healing response, okay? This speaks volumes about the comparison here. You can see HOCl is in the green, and the comparators with alcohol, quaternary ammonia, sodium hydrochlorate, or bleach, they do not clean as well. They do not address all the different pathogens, and they do not address the issues with resistance to antimicrobials, and they're not safe for you. Okay, so just take that. When you hear us here, take that as your primary take-home message, is we're introducing a safe and better disinfection process. It's 100% harmless.
HOCl is about 80 times more powerful than bleach in killing these pathogens, just as a go. And it's not bleach. HOCl is not bleach. It's different.
That's right. Well, and I was just reading an article. They tested the standard of care, which is just the typical quaternary ammonias on an operatory suite, and they did a CFU check, and then they did the hypochlorous after the fact, and it removed 10 times more CFUs than just standard cleaning alone. Right. So we want to tackle all the very scary antimicrobial resistant bugs, the MRSAs, the Vanco specimens, the staph, the Listeria. E. coli is a big deal in hospitals. We really have to tackle all these guys before we get into a pickle with these antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And this is along the lines of what Dr. Downs was saying, is this kind of gives you a description of all the factors that go into and the use cases for HOCl. Just remember, it's safe and it does all the things that we want it to do most effectively.
Just a quick note, that's fine. The NADCC that activates the water, there's enough in the water that when the HOCl is used up or gases out, there's enough NADC there to continue to make hypochlorous acids, so the strength of the liquid remains constant. I just got this slide from the EPA website. The EPA website, and it shows hypochlorous acid and what they've been approved for. Notice the last one at the bottom. Hypochlorous acid is EPA approved against coronavirus. Now, when you go to the EPA site, there will not be anything about COVID-19 coronavirus because it's too new and then nobody's tested against it yet. But OraCare mouth rinse, along with many other companies, are going through testing right now for a corona surrogate. And the corona surrogate is coronavirus 229E. We'll get those results soon. But right now, you need to know that there are things that are not showing up on the EPA website, because what they do here is they take companies who submit products to them and test them. If you have a product, you don't sell ozone products over to consumers or over the mail. So you won't see much about ozone in here, or nor will you see much about other types of products, because they're just not a commercial product that anybody had any interest in getting EPA approved. So EPA doesn't do this on their own. They wait for people to submit. Okay.
And this really drives it home. Chlorine gas is of the most acidic type of form of a chlorine molecule. And of course, then you have bleach on the very alkaline spectrum. And the unique, really exciting aspect about hypochlorous is they've been able to maintain that buffering system. And that's really, even though it's been researched for many, many decades and been shown to be very safe and effective, until it was made shelf stable, it was not a real appropriate commercial use case here. Just like ozone, it's very challenging.
That's right. But it used to be you had to take an electrolytic machine and water up to the bedside next to the patient and make the HOCl as you used it. It was totally impractical, but now it's totally practical with what they've done.
And then don't forget, 80 to 100 times more effective than bleach.
Yeah.
But I have a humidifier in the house for deodorizing when I'm cooking and stuff, and you can have your face a few feet away from it and be breathing it in, and it's perfectly safe for the mucous membrane. It's really cool.
It is cool.
And then this is how it works. Basically, there's the biochemistry. And just to give you a little view here, this is exactly how the white blood cell handles this thing. It's a natural defender, so we're used to it. It's part of our immune system response, so it's not causing an inflammatory process that's foreign that then we have to mount another healing response against. It actually is part of our natural exposure to pathogens. And it's very, very effective against all pathogens. So right before this, I wanted to also kind of talk to you. Hypochlorous is not only a very effective antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, but it's also safe for all mucus contact. Okay, this is super important. You want to actually encourage healing, don't thwart it like we were talking about with chlorhexidine. So if this is going to be effective for the mucous membrane, it's going to accelerate scarring mitigation. It's going to start the cascade of a healing response downstream. And it also permeates very small crevices to deal with odor and disinfection, so for halitosis and so those sorts of things. It's been shown to improve skin health, makes blood clot in wounds, so it's going to help with your periodontal treatments and disinfect at the same time. It causes fibrinogen oxidation, leads to firmer clots and longer clot lysis periods. It accelerates healing process so you have better outcomes while you're disinfecting your water. It stimulates immunity to germs. So now when you break up these particles and you make them into their own little antibodies, little particles that we can actually generate an antibody to, now it's part of your innate memory of your immune system. And of course, it also is important in the local effects there.
Great summary, Joe. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you this really quickly. This is what we're developing for a nozzle.
Yeah.
Very exciting here.
Are you able to turn up the volume on that, Joe, at all?
Is the volume low?
Yes, it's too low.
Okay, let's see. No, that's about as high as it gets.
Okay, just don't worry about it. We can see what we're doing. Explain what he's doing, Joe.
Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and explain it there.
So he's put the hypochlorous acid dolphin pod into a solution of water, deionized reverse osmosis water, or just plain distilled water. And you can hook it up to your air line in your operatory, and it's not noisy. It's whisper quiet. And you can fog your surfaces with it. Fog the floor, fog the cabinets, fog the countertops. And the thing is, you spray it on something, it evaporates, and there's no residue left over. It completely goes away. Want to comment, Joe?
Yeah. So this is going to integrate very nicely into your current air system. You can see it's very easy to mix, put it onto the nozzle, and so it's whisper quiet. He's going to show you what an average fogger sounds like. This is pretty annoying. And if you watch the particle sizes, 5 microns is going to evaporate very quickly versus trying to saturate it with a water bottle.
Yes, I want to make a comment about that, Joe. You'll see systems out there that have 200 parts per million hypochlorous acid, and then they're fogging it. By the time it gets to the surface, it's going to be way below 200. You need a higher concentration of the hypochlorous acid when you do a fogging so that you can get it, when you get it on the surfaces, it actually does the job at the right parts per million.
And you can put it on a sort of a pressurized canister to make it portable as well. Again, the higher the pressure, the more coverage you'll have. But this is what we're suggesting as a solution to fog and treat your waiting rooms regularly throughout the day, your operatories between patients. This is extremely safe. I mean, any other materials that you're trying to fog, you have to clear out the whole facility, sometimes overnight. So this is really changing the way we can do full effective disinfection. And this is really in development. We should know by this afternoon when these will actually be ready for purchase. Right. But again, if this is something you're interested in, you got to get onto the pre-order list, sleeprd.net. go to whole office disinfection, put in your information, say, I want to do fogging of HOCl in my office, keep me posted. Okay, this is pretty groundbreaking as far as I'm concerned here. And again, if you can't hear it very well, you're probably not going to get the
But they're going to show you the fogger. That's the old fogger there, and I mean, you can't use this in the office. It is so noisy that it would drive everybody crazy. And the
yeah.
ones that I've seen commercially out there are totally just as noisy as this one.
Yeah. So not a fun day. Not a fun day at the
I can't
office
hear
there.
it, Joe. We can't hear it, so it's no big deal.
Oh, great. Because it's really loud on my end. I'm like, I had to turn it off pretty quickly because it was not fun. So let's go to the next slide here.
All right. Let's
So
talk about clean air experience.
This is really cool. Look at this. This is a proof positive for your patients, your staff, yourself. This is the only system that we could find that would give you immediate, real-time disinfection of air. And it shows you with its own monitor. So if you're walking in there and it says green, you know you're in good shape with the waiting room as well as the operatory. This is really important because when you're dealing with aerosol management with corona, you've got to try to mitigate it in the air. And this Clean Air EXP actually uses a ionizing and deconstruct for ozone process, so it's both safe because you're not breathing in ozone that's inherent with ionization technologies. That's what we need to do. You need to integrate ionization and then mitigate the ozone to get to your 99.9% reduction in mold, bacteria, and virus particles in the air.
Yes, with this particular idea, not only is this producing high amounts of ions, but the fact that when you do high amounts with a high voltage, you'll always create ozone. And most of the systems out there do not remove the ozone, and you have to have it removed. There have been companies that have been sued to bankruptcy because of the ozone production that they make. Now you can put these into your individual operatories. They have portable units. I'm not sure if their best idea. You want to put these in your duct system because, as we showed before in that Wuhan study where the restaurant people were being infected by COVID-19, you want this going through your duct system and decontaminating the actual ducts themselves. In addition to that, as Joe mentioned before, these ions create clumps out of the viruses and the bacteria and so when you have a filtering system attached to your HVAC, it's going to make it 320 times more effective filtering.
That's right. That's right. The air, air indoors can be up to 100 times more polluted than outside because we are making things so much more efficient. Imagine what's happening when you're actively generating aerosols in the operatory. You've got to take this seriously, and we've been really, really impressed with the way these guys put together their product because they're actually doing this in much larger scales. We're talking casinos, airports, places that really have to start taking this seriously. And it also is taking care of odors. So when you naturally start to deactivate all these particulates in the air, it's not just the pathogens, it's also the pollutants, the toxins. Those sorts of things have to be deactivated and then filtered out of the air.
Yeah,
You can't do that without ozone.
The volatile organic compounds are also being removed, which are toxic. And this machine is actually destroying the viruses and killing microbes on the surfaces, in the waiting room, in the furniture, on the doorknobs, in the countertops in your area, and on your keyboards and mouses. We're talking about surfaces are also being disinfected by this program. Negative air systems and pure air systems will not do that.
Well, and this is important. When we start recommending these things proactively, so we can take accountability for our own facilities, then we have to prove it, right? And this is proof in the pudding. So this sensor will actively tell you if your particulate levels reach an unacceptable level, you'll see it, and you'll see what's going on.
People in the waiting room will see it too, and they're going to be looking at it and asking you questions about the quality of your air, and you can explain to them what you're doing in your office. This should be a way to make patients and staff more comfortable about coming into your office.
Yeah, and the ionization that they're doing with high energy in the duct system is basically the way it's working is it's generating a high energy oxygen ion that allows for clustering a cluster of particles together. So
Right.
these very, very small particles are clustering together because negative is attracted to neutral. Then they'll actually fall out of the air into the filtering system here.
Right.
This is really, really important. Even if you're using these quaternary ammonias, you got to deal with the side effects, and this is going to be really, really helpful to do that.
Yes. This is just one of the studies, University of Arizona. We'll have the citation at the end. These studies are on how fast it kills the viruses in the air, coronavirus, and also on the surfaces. So we've got a couple of studies here, maybe more than, maybe a few. I'm looking at that. Go ahead. Here's a comparison of the different ionization machines that are out there. There are other ionization machines that work in the ductwork, but as we said before, this is the only one that scrubs out the ozone that we know of, and it's really effective because you don't have to worry about damaging the lungs with ozone and creating nitrates in the air from the ozone.
Yeah, and their research shows that they removed 99.8% of all airborne allergens, 99.5% of all airborne asthma triggers, which I'm really interested in with treating sleep disordered breathing. I want to make sure nasal function is very good.
Yeah.
That's kind of on the forefront for dentistry now, because if you don't have good nasal function, you have dry mouth, you're going to worsen oral hygiene
Right.
and the oral microbiome.
Right.
And if we can tackle those, plus biological agents, and of course toxic chemicals like volatile organic compounds, cleaning products, disinfecting agents, paints, pesticides, solvents, these are all things that we have to mitigate actively.
And actually, this is a lot less expensive than these individual small suction units that you're putting in the operatories, which I don't have a lot of respect for.
Well, they don't cover much surface area,
No.
and you have to be really, really good about cleaning everything with the whole system.
They're spraying viruses back out into the room because of the micron size. And this is what we're going to talk about right now. HEPA filters, the smallest ones I've read about are 0.3 microns. So these whole office pure air systems with HEPA filters, they've got best at 3.3 microns. And even the QT, I can't remember, Air Plus unit, which has 3 different filters, a large one, a carbon filter, and then a HEPA filter, still is going to leave 0.3 micron holes open for viruses to get through. And we've known from the SARS-CoV-2 that it is 0.125 micron sizes, much smaller. Viruses in general range from 0.004 to 0.1 microns in size. This comes from the Source of Water Quality Association at WQA.org. Some units have 3 filters, as I said before. They go for dust and carbon and VOCs, and then the HEPA filter. But they're about $800 per room, and they're expensive. These systems that we're talking about are much less expensive comparatively than doing something that is a partial solution like that.
And again, let me highlight that this company has several patents on their process, and
actually 13, and 11 of them have been approved. 11.
Yes, so 13. So that means that until they were able to put those patents together, ionization was always the gold standard, but it was also unsafe. Like ozone, you don't breathe ozone. So if you can mitigate the ozone and get that same level of disinfection of the air and make it safe, that's why this is new. That's why it needs to be discussed as one of your essential disinfection protocols for the whole office.
It's just another study showing its effect on different types of bacteria. You can see it on the bottom there, the different types of bacteria and the improvement over untreated air and how fast it kills them. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about OraCare products. As I said before, I'm one of the founders of this company. Dental offices have been practicing universal precautions for years. We applaud them for that. The CDC has advocated pre-procedural rinsing with antimicrobial rinses for a very long time, and the citation is there. we can go to that later. Oral care has been recommending pre-rinsing for over 7 years. It is a standard of care that most dental offices are not following, but things are going to change. The CDC recommends oxidizing agents to kill the coronavirus. I think they've mentioned hydrogen peroxide. As we mentioned before, we have some issues with that hydrogen peroxide. Oral care is a powerful oxidizing agent and it's safe to use. The main active ingredient is chlorine dioxide, and that exists in two forms, chlorine dioxide and chlorous acid. When you're talking about these kinds of gases like hypochlorous acid and chlorine dioxide, these oxychlorine species, they always exist in a mix. They're never able to be isolated in pure form, never. So chlorine dioxide disproportionates into these two molecules, and then it further disproportionates into chlorous acid. Actually, there's a little chlorous acid also in hypochlorous acid in our rinse. We have never measured the hypochlorous acid content because we are happy with chlorine dioxide and what it does anyway. Chlorine dioxide is a gas, so much like ozone, but it has the ability to have a higher oxygen capacity. It doesn't have as high oxygen potential, but the oxidation capacity is higher. In other words, it will actually receive 5 electrons as compared to 2. So it has this potential to not only react with the bacteria, but leave tissues that are healthy and natural to your body, leave them alone so they're not hurt by these oxidizing agents like hydrogen peroxide can do. Go ahead. And this is just a chemical formula showing the disproportionation of chlorine dioxide going and disproportionating, as you can see on the top 2 lines there, to hypochlorous acid, which we've talked about in the dolphin pods. Continue. This is a photo from my office showing the action of chlorine dioxide in 1 week on candidiasis. It is extremely powerful killer of candidiasis, yet it's kind to the tissues. Again, probably the best rinse in the world for killing fungi, but it's also extremely effective. It's actually more effective than ozone against viruses, and I'll show you the information on that.
Well, I think you should visualize this too. This is the water you're spraying into your milieu, okay?
Right.
This is the stuff you can't see that you got to tackle, and that's why the pre-rinse, mid-rinse, and post-rinse is so important. Deactivate this stuff before it gets into the air that you're breathing.
Chloride, if you look online at Lentex Labs, you'll see a section talking about their water purification systems, and they're talking about chlorine dioxide. And on the last line, you'll see that they say chlorine dioxide kills viruses by preventing protein formation. Chlorine dioxide is more effective against viruses than chlorine or ozone, actually more effective. And there's the link for that. And then we have studies showing that chlorine dioxide actually inactivates influenza viruses, and these are coronaviruses. Continue. And it's been tested by Microchem Labs now. We have it down in Texas right now at Microchem Labs. It's being tested on coronavirus 22E, which is a coronavirus surrogate. You can continue. I got a study there citing chlorine dioxide and its comparison against chlorhexidine, and at a University of Iowa study, and we'll give you the citation on that as well. I want to speak a little bit about viruses, and this is why we're recommending mid-rinsing and post-rinsing with our oral care product, okay? When you're doing treatment, Jorgen Slotz, the professor at University of Southern California, has recommended in the California Dental Journal Association 2011, June, that he recommended pre-procedural rinsing with bleach, diluted 30-to-1. Well, most people aren't going to do that. We know that rinsing only reaches about 0.1 millimeter into the sulcus. Pre-rinsing is needed at the start of a procedure, but once you scale and do surgery or use the dental handpiece, you bring these to the surface. So mid-procedure rinsing is now indicated, also post-procedural rinsing. And as a matter of fact, Jorgen Slotz already recommended post-procedural rinsing, but when he was talking about this in his papers, he was talking about periodontitis, not about pre-rinsing for aerosols. But we're using his information to recommend because the principle is the same. If you're bringing these viruses and bacteria out of the sulcus into the oral cavity, post-rinsing is also indicated, and we're recommending the same thing.
Well, and that's important too. You know, you're looking at whole health now, and periodontitis can lead to cardiovascular implications. They're finding Staph aureus that's coming from the oral cavity in the brain in Alzheimer's patients. All sorts of viruses and bacteria that are associated with the mouth in sclerotic lesions in the arteries. If you manage this, not only do you make your own milieu safer, but you're also improving outcomes, both oral hygiene as well as cardiovascular. This is whole body dentistry.
Yeah.
So
let me say something about this too. If you're a surgeon and you're doing surgery, I don't recommend, first of all, never recommend chlorhexidine. I have a friend who used, well, there've been instances of anaphylactic shock with chlorhexidine, but also a friend of mine in Colorado, they went to the oral surgeon, had teeth removed and chlorhexidine rinse afterward, but the patient experienced taste loss. They lost all taste for the rest of their life. The taste is gone. The other thing about it is that hydrogen peroxide has an embolism issue. I don't want hydrogen peroxide in any surgery situation. So just remember those things. I have water flosser instructions on my website, but if you go to Facebook to the American Breast Specialist, and it's at American Breast Specialist, you'll see my water flosser instructions for using OraCare in periodontal irrigation. We're not recommending this be done pre-rinse because you don't want to use a water pick in the operatory. It's splashing around. I'm talking about home use here, so that's just an aside. Okay.
all righty.
Summary on pre-rinses, and this is what I'm recommending for pre-rinsing and any kind of rinse. It must be an oxidative, very effective microbe killer. It must not be inactivated substantially by body cell defenses and body chemistry and saliva. It must be safe to use for staff and patients. It should kill quickly, not just bacteria, but yeast and viruses. It must not impede wound healing, but actually improve wound healing by removing the volatile toxins. It must remove microbial toxins to clean wounds as well as disinfect them. And you also want a product that the patient can take home and use for preventing these infections at home.
That's great. You know, I was just pulling up some chats here, and someone asked, what is the contact time necessary for surface disinfection with the HOCl? It kills very quickly. So if it's a hard surface, it's pretty darn fast. And if it's a soiled surface,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, faster than cavicide. And if it's a soiled surface, try to clean it as best as possible. And then all disinfection products should be on there for, I believe, what, longer than 2 minutes?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I know that HOCl is extremely fast.
And you want to leave it saturated. That's why we've come up with the fogger nozzle. So you have a nice fine mist, and it's going to evaporate very quickly, but leave active ingredient on the actual surface. And that's an important question because if you leave a volatile organic compound like a quaternary bleach or quaternary ammonia on a surface, now it's there for people to touch. And whether you're using that at home or as a patient or as a clinician, you're actually now grabbing that toxin and putting it on your skin. You want something that's going to oxidize into the byproduct of salt and water. That's what hypochlorous actually
and that's what actually chlorine dioxide does too. It once it's done working, it decomposes to a harmless salt. Go ahead.
Have hospitals begun to employ this methodology? Yes, I was talking about a study where they're actually utilizing this in operatories. I've had a discussion with the ENT office that they're grabbing this from us with our fogger because the ultraviolet lights were not going to be doing the job for them in and out of the office at nighttime. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to the end here. So just to give you a heads up here, we have a bundle that we've set up for everyone at the end, but this is a really exciting development. This was the Red Dot winner in 2020. It's a oximeter, high resolution pulse oximeter that you can actually link to a online dashboard as a clinician. If you have someone that you suspect an employee or even a patient that is high risk for COVID or other virus that we need to monitor them, especially with COVID, one of the very early signs of decline prior to needing intensive care support with ventilation, artificial ventilation, is pulse oximetry drop. And so even before the patient is feeling symptomatic, if you can monitor their pulse oximetry throughout the day, you can alert them early to intervene early with the least burdensome interventions prior to going on to ventilation, which we know is actually pretty tough on the alveolus and actually causing a lot of trauma.
Can I say something about that, Joe?
Sure.
So the study I saw at the New York Times shows that you can get dramatic oxygen drops in a patient, even below 80, almost down to 50, and they won't even feel it. The patient doesn't know that they have COVID-19 infection. And they won't have a fever, they won't have a sore throat, they won't feel anything. There's no distress going on because the patient is actually exhaling CO2 easily. And so the distress feelings are not there, but they actually have this disease. Before you can detect these patients with fever and symptoms and sore throat, you can do it better with a pulse oximeter. And this is extremely helpful because I'm going to have one of these for all my staff members because I want to monitor them. If we see a decrease from baseline, we're going to have them stay home and get well and go get COVID-19 testing because we want to screen these patients. And you also want to screen your patients that are coming in the door for COVID-19, and you want to do it as early as possible. This is one of the ways you do that. Thank you.
It's now accepted by Medicare. So for telemonitoring, you can actually be reimbursed as a clinician who's monitoring this specifically. We can find out if and how that responds to teledentistry, but a lot of dentists are also trained in obstructive sleep apnea partnership with their sleep specialists as a DME provider and appliance manager. So I was already using this device as a titration tool for my oral appliances prior to this, and they've been doing a lot of research and development since the COVID, and they partnered with a machine learning company online to actually do a questionnaire that's also included with this so that if they're answering the questions in a certain fashion, you can see if they're declining or not. The recording will be available later. If you go ahead and go to sleeprd.net, a whole office disinfection, put in your information, your email, and then say you'd like to have a recording sent to you, we'll do that or keep it set up. And also
be sure to remember it's .net, not .com.
That's right. Yep, sleeprd.net. Also, someone was asking, when the levels move from acceptable to unacceptable on the sensor for the Clean Air XP, do you stop procedures and re-disinfect, or is the air fairly stable throughout the day?
The ions are still there. It's just that it's gotten below threshold. That there's the 3 settings on that EXP. There's light, medium, and high. I would recommend high, and then you've got a buffer level that you don't have to worry about. Even if it goes to red, that doesn't mean your office is infected. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that they're going to bump it up again and get these ions in the air quickly.
I had another question about masks. We'll get you a link if you go to sleeprd.net, put in your name and email address. We can get you linked up with the Korean supplier of the K95s. I've also got some local suppliers for some N95s as supplies last, obviously, but that'll be important for long-term as well. Yeah. We'll go to the next one here. So this pulse oximeter ring is multi-size. It'll stretch for the finger, so you can use it for several family members if needed. It's not just for one size fits all. It is essentially a medical grade Fitbit for the finger, but it shows high resolution pulse oximetry. So you'll be monitoring continuous pulse oximetry. It also gives sleep graphs based off of 5-axis accelerometry. So we can also see if someone's sleep quality is declining as well, if they're getting enough sleep, because if you don't get enough rest, your immune system is dramatically affected the next day. As a sleep specialist, I really want to get this word out here. If you get less than 6 hours sleep in a night, okay, you have a 5-fold to 10-fold increase in IL-6 in your bloodstream the next day. Your inflammation markers are through the roof, and you're more susceptible to viral infections. So just be aware, sleep's very important to discuss as well. And this is just some more information on that sort of application. And that's the partner questionnaire online. So I'll answer some more of these chat questions, and feel free to put them up there if you have more of them. We wanted to try to make sure that we had time for questions.
Joe,
Yeah.
give them the discount code. It's office, right?
Yep, it's office. So we've made a discount code for the whole office disinfection, either a la carte for different areas that you think you're interested in, like the dolphin pods for surface disinfection. Tell us if you're interested in the 5-micron nozzle that can be connected to your office compressed air system. Tell us, we can tell you when that's going to be available. We also want to know if you are interested in ionization. We can get those squared away for you as well. So sleeprd.net. Whole office disinfection, put in your name, email address, and in the comments, write down referral code OFFICE. And that'll give you some more information here. So contact time needed, okay. Okay, contact time needed is equivalent to the time needed to kill the organism such as TB or COVID-19. Can you send that study? So we have studies on coronavirus as well as tuberculosis, and this is a highly effective disinfectant against all pathogens, including tuberculosis. At 500 parts per million, it is extremely effective on surfaces, and we'll talk to you on how you would apply the parts per million for different use cases. You would not apply that level of concentration to a skin wound. You know, you would probably put it down to 100 parts per million per dilution, right, or 200, and then you would actually use that 2 or 3 times a day. We'll be coming down along with the OraCare, some other gels, some rinses, some ophthalmic solutions are being used. There's actually one product made from another company. I'm forgetting their name right now, but I can get you the information. They make it for debridement and wound healing for for recalcitrant healing wounds in the hospital system. They're using hypochlorous to both disinfect and rapidly advance the healing process.
Right. Thank you.
What else we got here? Can you send that study from hospital use? Yes. That will be on sleeprd.net. Put in your name, email, and information you need in the comment section, and we will definitely get that to you. Reliable POC with high sensitivity and specificity, that is. Correct. I want to set up a time to present this webinar to my client mailing list. Of course, yeah, absolutely. Get a hold of us on, again, sleeprd.net. Go to whole office disinfection, put that information along with your email address, and then let us know that you would like us to present this to your groups.
Something about this, Joe. We are going to be doing the same presentation without product names to Wisdom, that Facebook group. It's a blog group called Wisdom, WIZDOM, and it will have attached to it 1.5 hours of CE credit that is absolutely free, okay? And it'll be the same lecture, but because it's AGD approved, that particular lecture will only have the products listed at the last slide on the presentation. That's just one of the requirements. So we're fine with that. We'll go through the whole system without names and product identification until the end. But if you're interested in that, that's happening on May 2nd. And I believe it's at 10 a.m. What time zone was that, Joe?
Oh, I think it was Eastern time.
Yeah, well, you can go to Wisdom Facebook site, sign up, and you'll find that information. There's a little, I think they pinned it at the top of their thing right now.
Yeah, and there's a good question here. It says, what's the, how do you spell SleepRD? It's just an abbreviation for Sleep Research and Development. So sleep, just SLEEPRD.net, and then click the whole office disinfection and put in your name, email, and then the comment section office if you'd like the discounts that we're getting on all the products, including OraCare, which remember, OraCare is a through your dentist product. So you're going to use it as the clinician. You're going to recommend it to your patient, and then that's going to be a long-term treatment enhancement to your outcomes for periodontal disease.
People will be able to take home the OraCare. People will be able to use the air ion system at their home, and they'll be able to use the dolphin pods at home. They'll have a consumer-sized dolphin product as well.
Right, and that's a question some folks have is, you know, you want to do different parts of this. So immediately what I've already done in my own practice is I've got, and this is not my, you know, this is not like, you know, CDC recommendation, but I've got a couple of misters of humidifiers with hypochlorous, just to feel good. And I have the squirt bottles with the hypochlorous. I apply them in the room liberally. I have it at home. I've got the Clean Air EXP that's ordered. We will need to help you coordinate that with an HVAC specialist to integrate into your duct system. It's a pretty straightforward process, but it's actually cut into the duct system, applied, and then it'll be active as soon as they get it set up there.
Yeah, it's hooked up to the fan system. So whether you have heat going or air conditioning going makes no difference. And even if they're both turned off, the ions are measured separately. So it'll turn on the fan as soon as you need ions in your office or your home.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
And remember, the water filtration is extremely easy to put together. We'll be having some how-to videos here coming up in the near future. This has all come about very quickly. This is data that we need to get out to folks as quickly as possible, get them confident to get back in practice. You know, that really motivated Rick and me together, thinking that how do we get back to practice safely and feel confident that we are managing our own health as well. This is just as important for our families as well as us, as well as our patients.
Yes.
You have to take aerosol management seriously.
And it has to be whole office. You just can't isolate this to your operatories. It's not going to work. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And then, of course, I've got each of these on the slides. This will be ready for you asynchronously here, but we've got some pricing here for both retail and discount. The Dolphin Pods are easy to get a hold of. I would probably hop on pretty quickly on the sleeprd.net. And if you want to order those Dolphin Pods, get to us pretty quickly, because that one's really selling out quickly. And that's basically a year's worth of product right there in 40 tablets.
I mean, it's amazing how inexpensive it is compared to what you've been doing. Not only is Cava Wipes more expensive, but you're wasting it, and you're putting sheets of whatever it is in the landfill, and you're constantly wasting product. Every time you pull one of those sheets out, you're using more than you need, and you're wasting it. So,
yeah. I also want you guys to know that the integration to the water line for the whole office is extremely straightforward. You can hire a professional. We can get you linked up with some local handyman to do this. It's not a challenging process to get the whole office filtered. And remember, this is the primary way to handle your biofilm management there. You've got to filtrate first, then disinfect for treatment and for patient safety in the operatory and for your safety. Then you do whole air disinfection as well with the purifier, you know? Think of it that way.
When I first talked to Joe, he was looking at a system for waterline cleaning with ozone. It was a very complex system, and it was very expensive. Ozone is great. I mean, if you can implement ozone into your water lines, that's good. But the filtration system that Toppin has is less expensive, easier to do, and it does a really remarkable job. So thank you for doing that, Joe.
Yeah, of course. And you know, with a couple of these products, please don't get frustrated. They are back ordered. The Clean Air EXP, you got to get on the list because they're already back ordered. They've got a lot of orders coming out there. The OraCare is extremely, I think this is going to be one of the primary things you guys start to apply quickly and right away in your offices, and you can, along with the Dolphin Pod. So make sure you get on sleeprd.net, go to whole office disinfection. We'll get you a discount. And then we'll also get you signed up for future orders so that you can get some patient pricing for your patients as well, because they're going to want to do this as well for their family members. And if you wanted to include all of those products except for the ozone generator is a separate product that we have to talk to you offline, because they won't let us actually put the pricing down, because they're hyper competitive for pricing, so they don't want to make their other folks in other parts of that world frustrated with this discounted pricing. But we can talk to you about their pricing separately. But the RO unit, the water filtration for 5 operatories, starting for the OraCare, hypochlorous for a 40 tablet box, and a circle ring to get started, We'll also schedule a follow-up consultation to help kind of in-service you through all these products as well. That's the full package for all those. But you can also order those a la carte. And don't forget to put in office for this webinar to get that discount associated with those products. Was there anything else you wanted to leave at the end of this talk to the attendees there, Rick?
I think we got through it, and I think we did it in a decent amount of time. I'm amazed at how many people stayed on this lecture, considering how long it is, but I know it's important. This is at the forefront of everybody's mind right now. And I, as well as you, Joe, all of us are in the same boat when it comes to trying to figure out how we're going to get back. And there's a lot of crap out there being pushed that I don't think is going to be useful and extremely expensive for offices to implement. I think we've got a reasonable package here. Even this price that are listing on the screen, I've seen that for just water filtration systems and air cleaning systems. I mean, these prices are, I think we're trying to keep them low and do a good job for our clients.
Yeah, and I'm also lecturing to chiropractic groups. I'm lecturing to sleep specialty groups. I'm lecturing to hospital systems. These are not single sort of isolated areas that are going to be adopting this disinfection protocol. This is going to be used, I think, all across the milieu of medicine and dentistry. So again, I don't want you to get frustrated if you, I sound like I'm repeating myself a lot, but get on to the sleeprd.net, put the information in. We'll at least get you started as interested on the list. I think Tesla's trained us pretty well to do that, where we kind of get sort of lined up for something because they don't have quite the demand there. Yeah. So thanks you so much for everybody for attending. We'll have more of these. We're gonna be learning a lot. And like Dr. Downs was saying, when May 2nd comes around, we'll have a version of this for AGD. Please contact us if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to reach out to you and help you out.
I want to ask her, let's answer a couple more questions, Joe, and then we'll quit. We can't do them all right now.
Okay. So let's see here. I'll go up to the top. What if you vacuum up hypochlorous into the vacuum?
It doesn't last that long. It doesn't stay wet. When you're fogging it at that low concentration, and besides that, it's not going to hurt your vacuum anyway. It's just going to kill bugs inside your bag. But yeah, it's certainly not going to be harmful for your vacuum.
I can link you to the audio for that fogger video on YouTube, and he discusses how the hypochlorous does not corrode metal parts. It's not a concern there. OSAPs, if saliva were red, illustrates this quite well. You are absolutely right.
Very right. Yeah.
Absolutely right. If you guys can go there and check that out, you'll see all the areas that are cross-contaminated, and it's not a fun picture when you see it visually. If saliva was red, we would be with this conversation would be old hat. It
might even be good because you could see it and probably take action, because it would be nice to be able to see it. It would be gross, but it would be nice to know, because it would train you right away on how to be more careful with these aerosols and splatter.
And don't forget, you can spray hypochlorous on your hands. You know, I'm telling people that you can spray your surfaces of your packages. You know, it's safe for you. So feel free to use it often. And
you can also use it on your masks, ozone and hypochlorous acid. If you want to reuse a mask, spray it, then dry it, and you'll get that. You'll not only remove toxins but kill bacteria while you're getting these things ready for reuse.
What's the square footage for the Clean Air EXP? I believe it's 2,000 square feet for each particular unit. Is that correct, Rick?
I think so. They want one for each air intake unit or feeder unit in your office. So like my office just ordered 3. Okay.
Oh, and you know, if we're going to start talking about whole office disinfection fogging, which is what we're going to be doing when our nozzles are available, you can actually take 1 gallon, which is basically, I think, 2 pods for 1 gallon, and you can fog the whole 20,000 square feet with the fogger with 1 gallon of hypochlorous.
That's
And
right.
this is going to be part of your disinfection protocol. And you can do it safely. You can wear a mask just to be on the safe side, but by the time it hits the surfaces, it's 500 parts per million. And you can actually, the CDC, actually the EPA allows you, without any injury to lung tissue, you'd be able to breathe up to 280 parts per million.
Yes.
Of hypochlorous. And again, it's safe for mucous membranes. It accelerates healing. Don't forget, it's one of the most effective disinfectants for all pathogens because your body uses it. It's been, we've been figuring this thing out for millennia. And of course, it also accelerates healing. That's the most important thing that I want to get across to people is the mucous membranes heal faster. Periodontal disease gets better. Got to run. Another C. I'm looking for it. Great. Okay. So everyone's doing great. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Please go to sleeprd.net, put in office, and we'll get you those discounts and get you set up, or at least get you on the waiting list. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.